Football Club complete the signing of Manchester City's starlet Cole Palmer, a deal that nobody was really speaking about. I know 10 days ago it was reported on, but nobody really saw this deal coming from a Chelsea point of view, barring Simon Phillips and his publication. There's a £40 million deal plus $5 million of add-ons. We're going to delve into that tonight. We're also going to look at the Amrabat deal to Manchester United. It's everyone. Look, I believed in this deal the whole time. I believe this deal could happen. It is now motoring on ahead. There is a breakthrough this evening for Manchester United in terms of the negotiations around the loan. There is a feeling that the deal is imminent. We'll talk about that. Man United have also pulled out, as of right now, the deal for Gravenberch as we are focusing on Amrabat. As we're doing that, Liverpool have advanced their talks for him. We're going to be delving into those deals, plus Fati to Tottenham, 99% done and over the line. We're going to get Spurs fans' perspective on that tonight as well. We're touching on Cucurella, and I want to ask Gooners. I keep seeing this debated all day. Well, I didn't see it all day today. I'm a liar. When I was coming back after I spent the day with my daughter, put her to bed, and I'm still reading people talking about the Mudryk situation. We're going to talk about that on the show tonight as well. But do me a big favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the Football Terrace. It's a late night edition of the Done Deal Show. Let's go. Been a crazy day. I said to KJ last night, so tomorrow I'm taking a day off. The videos you've seen on the terrace today were recorded very late last night to be released. I'm taking a day off. It's my daughter's 5th birthday. She had presents in the morning. We went out to Paradise Wildlife Park, had food, saw my dad. Great day. Great day. I've barely been on Twitter, a few little moments. And I kind of, Freya's getting settled to go to bed. And then I'm looking on Twitter. And what am I seeing? It has been a madness, an absolute madness of a day, a crazy day, a real crazy day. Palmer to Chelsea. Here we go. Done deal. Complete. Okay. Now, I am live now, people. This isn't pre-recorded. This is really live. Amrabat to Man United. The David Ornstein bomber. And I knew something was going to happen. The one thing I did see earlier on today was Fabrizio retweet an Amrabat tweet from about 2 or 3 days ago. That lets you know it's coming. We have seen Gravenberch still getting close potentially with Liverpool. Fati to Spurs. And still more talk of other deals into Chelsea. Still talk of Cucurella into Man United, which I know is dividing people. But it's such an interesting concept. And I want to talk about all those deals on the terrace tonight. Now, this is not a Terry pre-record. Obviously, when I upload videos at like 8 minutes long, they're uploaded videos. Of course, they're a pre-record. They always are. Every uploaded video is a pre-record. This is genuinely live. I wouldn't be able to react to your live comment if it wasn't. I love this. Gravenberch rejected you and you can't even afford Amrabat. Well, this is the thing. Look, Liverpool fans who didn't accept that you got rejected for Lavia and for Caicedo, you have no credibility to call it out now. This is why I take my L's, so that I have credibility to banter when it comes around the other way. So again, it don't work. It don't work, Samuel, my old mate. Terry, I wouldn't tell these weirdos where I go or what I do. But what are they going to do? Okay, I went to Paradise Wildlife Park today. Do you know if everyone goes there tomorrow, I won't be there. It's safe to tell people where you've been because you ain't there in it anymore. Think about it. What are they going to do? They've got a time machine. I wouldn't worry about it too much at all. I'm seriously not too worried. Enzo scored. Yeah, and listen, I was mad. I was actually like going to watch the Chelsea game tonight. I didn't realize it wasn't on TV. And then I didn't realize, listen, I was going on my VPN. I was checking my DAZN app, my Paramount app. I checked every app. It weren't shown anywhere in the world. I couldn't believe it. It was literally available in no country on planet Earth. I was very shocked indeed. But let's start with, I want to start with the big deal of the day. I want to start with the real big deal of the day here, and that's Cole Palmer. £40 million plus 5 million of add-ons for a very talented young forward. I thought he was excellent for City in the Community Shield, excellent for City in the opening day of the season. Now, I understand they've gone out and they've brought in Jeremy Doku. 110%. I understand it. But I thought he'd get more of a chance at City. I thought he deserved more of a chance. I think there's a real talent in there. It's another really high-caliber young player that Chelsea have now purchased. Takes their spending another £40 million higher, their investment another £40 million higher. And the Swiss Ramble today released the stats of the investment since June the 1st, 2022, the 4 biggest teams that have invested in their clubs. Man United are fourth at about 719 million total investment. That includes agent fees, salaries, bonuses, everything. By the way, net spend's not real. Arsenal was second on 742 million. City was third, and I think it's around 900 odd million. Chelsea, 1.6 billion. Now that's going to raise even higher based on this deal. The investment is high, but it is another youngster. It is another player that's about potential as opposed to maybe ready for the here and now. Or maybe some Chelsea fans disagree. Maybe Chelsea fans believe this deal can be done. This deal can impact the team instantly, straight away, and make Chelsea an even better team. I want to get your opinions on that tonight. I think it's a good piece of business. I'm not sure if he's going to be someone that delivers for 45, 50 games a season just yet, but he has the potential to. Equally, City fans, how do you feel about losing him? Genuinely. This isn't somebody that hasn't kicked the ball for you, but I know you're a brilliant team, but you've got Lavia now walking around the Premier League. Cole Palmer now. Do you not think there's a way of... I know Doku's brilliant, but would you not rather maybe seen Palmer given the chance? Or do you believe that if the fact that you've signed Doku and sold Palmer, does that mean actually we know that he's very good. We know he's very good, but he's not going to be Doku's level, so we're able to let him go. I want to get your opinions on that, please, people. It means a great, great deal to me to understand what you think and feel about that. It truly, truly does. Here we go. Big bomber here from Fabrizio Romano. Man United are preparing a formal bid for Amrabat. Always been a top target. No loan proposal sent to Fiorentina. Just informal talks is what Fabrizio Romano has just said here. So he's waiting for Man United since June. And listen, do you know what I love about this? You've got to go to David Ornstein's comments earlier on today as well. David Ornstein just said that Man United are working on it. He said that they have had talks around the loan, but no loan offer. I've also spoke to journalists that have said something different to Fabrizio this afternoon, that they have offered a loan, but as long as there is an obligation to buy, which, by the way, if you do a loan with an obligation to buy, you're essentially buying the player. You're just prolonging the actual process, but it's there. But he has just said no formal proposal sent. Again, we know what that means. That means it's all talk and unofficial until the official bid's made, but the official bid gets agreed before it's made, so it's all the same thing. Doesn't matter. Amrabat to Manchester United is advancing right as we speak. The deal is seen as imminent, and it kind of has to be. There's like 24 or 48 hours of the window left. It can't be prolonged anymore from this point. It is imminent, and I can't lie to you guys. I'm buzzing. I tweeted this earlier, and a certain Arsenal fan, Eduardo Haig, I'm like, call me out. I get on with Eduardo. There's no beef there. But I said this deal for Amrabat is genuinely a game changer for Man United's midfield. And I'm being very specific with my words here because we know certain people like to twist words. I didn't say it's a game changer in terms of taking us from where we are to winning the Prem. I'm talking just about our midfield. And the response I got was, but I don't think he's going to play. My first feeling to that was, so a Man City or Arsenal now, because I think you're building it, are you the only clubs that are allowed strength in depth? Being a game changer, in terms of my interpretation of it, is it gives our midfield extra depth, extra quality, and additional options for the first team and for the rotation purposes, which changes the game for our midfield. Read the tweet. Secondly, I remember people telling Arsenal fans that Ben White ain't going to start. Why are you buying him? I know he got injured very early this season, but he started the first 2 games. Why are you buying Timber? He's not going to start. That's stupid. I remember people saying that about Zinchenko. I remember a number of Arsenal signings, which Eduardo Haig would say have been brilliant, being written off by Arsenal fans, by the way, in the windows they were done. When they signed Tomiyasu, who's this guy? Why we bought him? Ramsdale was another, got written off by everybody. And look how they turned out. Not good enough. Not even as good as what we've got. Why have we bought him? So when I see, this is the one thing I would say. I know banter's the banter and the game's a game, but when I see people respond to signings and quotes about that signings with the same, in my opinion, low-level analysis that their club has suffered and it's been proven wrong, I don't get it. So let's just say Amrabat doesn't start straight away. As a Man United fan, I'd rather have Amrabat on my bench backing up Casemiro than McTominay, right? So I still think it's a game changer because Casemiro needs to be rotated in and out at times this year. He's 31. He can't play 50, 60 games in the season. So it is a game changer for our midfield. And I'm very, very happy that it is progressing. I really, really am. I'm excited about the prospect of him joining Man United. I'd have loved it to be done weeks ago. And as me and Lee Gunner got into a big fight about last night, the manager wants him. He is the manager's choice. So if he flops, Ten Hag is accountable for buying someone that doesn't fit the league or the system or a combination of those things. What Ten Hag is not accountable for, in my opinion, is the club's inability to get the deal done sooner, because we don't need to scrimp and scrape, in my personal opinion, but we're doing it. That's outside of the control of the manager because he doesn't control the budget. You could throw in an argument that he's wasted money on other players in the past. Therefore, if he wouldn't have got Anthony and he would have gone and bought Elise for 35 million, he'd have more money and could have got Amrabat sooner. I'll take that argument on board and say fair point. But this summer, he's wanted Amrabat for weeks, but the club have not allowed the deal to be sanctioned up until this point because we have had the outgoings and they didn't want to commit more of the club's money. Why? Because they want it for themselves. It's as simple as that. They're saying there's FFP issues, but I don't believe that for a second in my personal opinion. I just don't. But Amrabat to Man United, a deal that is getting closer by the minute, and I'm very, very excited about that indeed. We're also going to be talking Gravenberch on the show as well. We're talking about Gravenberch. According to David Ornstein, Liverpool and Bayern Munich are in talks and in conversation about this as we speak, trying to get this deal done. He has said that there's no guarantee the deal will happen, but the clubs are discussing the price, finances, right, formal offer to follow. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Again, I'd have loved him at Man United as well, but the board have told Ten Hag that there's only enough budget to buy one. So you've got to prioritize between Amrabat and Gravenberch. So we've gone for Amrabat over Gravenberch. And I actually understand that because as much as I want both, I think Amrabat, I'm not saying he's the better player, but I do think he's the profile that we need. Some will disagree with that. More entitled to hear your opinion. But if Liverpool get Gravenberch, they're signing a really, really good player indeed. They are. Going to get Ram and Brandon on with me in a few moments to have their say on these deals. Also want to speak tonight on the show, people, about the situation with Fati, who is looking like he could be joining Tottenham, which I don't think any single person on God's green earth would have predicted even a week ago, definitely not a year or two ago, that it'd end up there. What does that mean? Has he fallen from grace? Or are Spurs pulling off a huge transfer coup here? Let me know what you think. Let me know what you feel. Please make sure, by the way, like buttons are smashed and you are subscribing to the Football Terrace as well. Everyone's shouting Brighton here. Brighton. What do you mean? Oh, a Brighton in for him now. Oh, my days. Oh, Brighton have sent an official loan bid to Brighton for Ansu Fati. I didn't even know that. Well, I didn't know it till now. It's literally got tweeted a minute ago. Tottenham negotiating with Barca today, but Brendan Johnson remains the priority. Okay, so that report that's come out of Spain that it's 99% done with Tottenham we've already had. Listen, I love the lot. This is going to be one of the most epic ends to a transfer window ever. Going to bring out my panel now to have their say because I'm intrigued. There's so many deals to delve into, so many deals to talk about tonight as well. If you want to come on the show, let me know. Drop me a message. I'll send you out the link as well. Brandon, Ram, Canadian Cam here as well. Welcome, boys. The first one I want to talk about, though, I want to get your reaction as all rivals to Cole Palmer to Chelsea for £40 million. What are we saying?
They can't help themselves.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
I mean, like, I've seen a few good games from him. I don't think he's a bad player, but is he a much better prospect than Mudryk? Is he it just feels like they can't help themselves. It feels like Bully sees a deal and he's like, oh yeah, okay, you know what? Let's get in there. Let's buy this player. And it helps City. Like it helps City who, like, I'm sitting there wondering how they continually do this. They sell these players who are fairly unproven for top dollar. Like, that's a lot of money for a dude who scored a couple goals in the last few weeks. Like, that's kind of what's happened. I didn't really see him play at all last year, and I watched a lot of City. That's a lot of money, in my opinion. For if you're City, you're like, yeah, take him 40 million. That's Chelsea just can't help themselves, in my opinion. Like, now they have how many? Like, they got 4 or 5 wingers that are going to be fighting for the same positions with one game of football a week. That's wild. That's a lot for me. Anyway, that's where I'm at.
Wait, what about yourself, Brandon? Good bit of business, or do you think it's much of a muchness for what Chelsea already have?
Yeah, I think it's good business for Man City. Let's put it that way. I think Cole Palmer's a very good player. I think he's shown that. He's definitely very talented. And I was very surprised that, Man City have let him go. But if we're being real, over the last couple of years, how many players have Manchester City let go and actually regretted it? Do you know what I mean? Like, they get top dollar for their players as well. And yeah, they'll invest that in the squad. They'll invest that elsewhere. And the reason why Man City get top dollar for reasonably unproven players is because they're such a well-run football club. So, I do think Cole Palmer will do all right at Chelsea. I do think Pochettino, will give him a fair amount of opportunities as well. And who knows? Who knows with Chelsea and what they're building there? They're going down the young route, very similar to what Arsenal did down the young route. And Pochettino is definitely a manager who can work with the young players like, Cole Palmer, who's got talent, and make them better, no doubt.
I agree. I will come to you in a minute, Ram. Don's here with us, obviously a Chelsea fan. I would say well done on the win tonight, but no one knows about. I know I've watched a few. You sent me you and someone else sent me the Facebook link to a stream. I watched a little bit on that, but you couldn't tell. You won tonight, but no one can really review the game because nobody saw it. But your reaction, mate, Cole Palmer, a name that was linked about 10 days ago, but maybe not one that you expected to complete. Some are saying a little bit similar to what you already have. Others are really excited about it. Does this transfer move you? Is it good business in your opinion, mate?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely good business, man. I've always rated Palmer, to be honest. And what I've realized is a lot of people that have a lot of doubts on him, I don't think they watch enough City because he doesn't get enough game time for them. But if you watch them in the Champions League, if you watch them in the Carabao, if you watch them in the FA Cup, you would know that this guy's quality, man. The only reason why he doesn't play really is because Bernardo Silva was ahead of him. Mahrez used to get benched and he was ahead of him. Foden was ahead of him. So technically he was like third choice. But for me, he definitely doesn't play like a 21-year-old, man. He's very, very polished for a 21-year-old. Got a really good finish on him. Really, really good at retaining the ball. Tactically, he understands his role really well. Obviously, he's being coached by arguably the greatest coach that we've ever seen. And he's young. Do you know what I mean? He's young. I'm not saying he's going to come here and bang in 30 goals a season, but I'm looking at him as someone that could potentially be a game changer in the future. He scored quite a lot of clutch goals for City. The other day he scored in a Super Cup. He just scored the other week against Arsenal. He's got a good left foot on him, man. Really, really good finish. So I think it's different to what we've got, like, because he can play in the 10, and he can also play on the wing. I wouldn't say he's as direct as Noni or Mudryk, for example, but what he does offer is something that's a little bit different, And like I said, he can play down the middle as well. So he will give us a little bit of flexibility because obviously Nkuku's injured right now. So I'm happy with the signing, man. Again, I'm not saying he's going to come in and become world class, but he definitely has the potential to become world class. And as it is right now, he's polished, man, for a 21-year-old. I'm happy with it. I'm gassed with it, to be honest.
I hear you on that. What about the? I'm going to ask you this, not from my perspective, but you had Daps on the Top 6 show Monday, kind of saying to you, but all you're praising is potential. Where are the players to deliver in the here and now? Is it a concern that you haven't maybe gone out and bought a more established attacker to help with all these youngsters, or do you actually trust what Todd Bowley, what Pochettino are trying to do and build here?
In an ideal world, Terry, I've said this a million times, I would love experience. But when I ask people, give me the solutions, give me the names, they can't give me the names right now that we can go out there and get in those positions. So I have to deal with what the market's looking at right now. And let's be real, everyone that we can get that's realistic are young. Do you get it? They're all young players. So we just have to trust that we're looking at the players that are young, but still have that quality that can hack it in the league. Because he's got Premier League experience. He's been playing with Man City. Like, these are treble winners. Let's not act like he's going to come from flipping Bournemouth or, you know, Wimbledon, for example. He's a top player, man. I rate him highly. So I think people need to start looking at the quality of these players rather than looking at just their age, because I think that's kind of lazy analysis rather than actually looking at the players that are coming in. Ideally, I would love to get more experience, but who is there? We can't go and get Mbappe. Do you know what I mean? We can't go get Vinicius right now. He's young as well. We can't go and get Rodrigo. He's another young one. All these guys are young, bro. Olise was young, but Premier League proven. So again, I'm more than happy to listen to people's suggestions about older players, but who is there that we can go get right now? So we have to take a little, you know, different avenue, I guess. So I'm happy with it, man. I think Palmer's a baller. I think he's ready to play for us, to be honest. I think he's a baller.
So ironic hearing Chelsea fans saying trust the process. It's mad.
Listen, in an ideal world, I would love experience, man. I would love experience, but there's just no one there in the market.
I mean, there's a pretty experienced guy. He just played in a Champions League final. He's played at Manchester United. He's played at a couple big clubs. He's on his way to Roma. He seems available now.
Who?
Lukaku.
Oh, you're taking the piss. You're taking the piss, man. But yeah, no, Terry, I'm happy with the signing. I'll be real.
No, I mean, listen, and I get it. You guys have gone for this, and I do get your point around who are these experienced players you could buy. Now, I know if Lee Gunner was sitting here, he would say maybe not so much to Chelsea. You've invested a lot. I said about Rasmus Højlund. I wanted Kane. Man United couldn't get that deal done. The budget hasn't been given to the club to go and get that deal done in terms of the 100 million odd to sign him, plus the 500-600 grand a week it would have cost to get him to the club. The manager wanted him and said no. The next option we went for was a young up-and-coming player in Rasmus Højlund. Now, I understand the take of a league gunner that you should demand from your owners that they invest the money to be able to go and buy Harry Kane or Usherman. If they don't, the manager should quit and walk away. But the problem that you have is that most owners don't do what Man City do, which actually, when you break down the logic, it means on average around 16 to 17 managers would all be quitting their jobs in the Premier League every single season, because owners don't do that per se on all those kind of deals. So I understand where you're coming from. In reality, you have to look at the situation and say, is there a 25, 26-year-old who we can sign, who the club will sell, that wants to join us, that can improve the team? If there isn't one of ample quality, why not buy 21, 22, 23-year-olds with potential for generally a cheaper price, put a lot of them in? A lot of these young players are going to have a good sell-on value, even if they're loaned out. So I do understand the strategy. You know, whether it works, we're only really going to know in 2 or 3 years' time. But I'm intrigued. And the
good thing is, I think people are forgetting who we actually hired. We brought in Poch to help develop these young players. He's got a proven track record of doing it in the league. Do you get it? And if it works, it's going to be amazing, because a lot of these players are going to develop and blossom at the same time. So I'm happy, man. I'm gassed.
This comment here says they should have got Felix on a permanent deal.
Felix ain't a good winger, and we've already turned him away. Like, the end product's not there.
He didn't earn it.
Yeah. Listen, when he first came to you guys, I was one of those people with Felix that felt that he moved too early to Ati, and the style of football killed him. First couple of games for you, I know he got sent off very early, but that first performance against Fulham, and then when he came back, I was looking at this guy, baller. This guy's got everything looked really good. But the more and more I watched him, I realized that, no, this guy has no end product. It became more and more apparent that he wasn't delivering, and the money he would have 80 million plus whatever he want in salaries, 300, 400, 500 grand a week for a player. And you've got to look at it this way. Barca might come in for him, but who else in the world is looking at him? And he's only 24, 25. That's it. Listen, I don't want to. I didn't want to even say this today, but I will. It's like all the idiot Man United fans who genuinely believe that Donny van de Beek is clear of Bruno. Why is only? Listen, when I first read it, I thought he said Leighton Orient, but the fact that only what they called is it Lorient? Or how do you even pronounce their name?
L'Oreal.
The fact that only that one club, L'Oreal FC, because he's worth it, they're the only club that wants to buy him. That tells you everything. There are some Man United fans who think Martial's still better than Rashford. No one in the world wants to buy him, not even the Saudis. And it kill it over there. No one wants him. So you have to sometimes look at these situations. Who wants a player? So back to that comment. Yeah, no, they shouldn't have signed Felix 110%. That would be a waste. Felix hits the woodwork more than a carpenter.
Yeah, he got unlucky last season, to be fair. He could have had a few more goals than what he got.
Hitting the woodwork.
Gives me Martial vibes, man, where like they're just good dribblers. They look nice on the ball, but then nothing.
End product's not there,
Yeah.
Some of these super chats here. This one from Mohammed says, having mixed feelings about Palmer. Who is clear? Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
I'll be so real with you. In that 10, he's definitely more polished than Chukwuemeka. I'll be so real with you.
But then the question is, you got Nkunku and you got other players there that is just, it just seems like you're getting too much in one area. And like, I still think you guys need a better goalkeeper. I'm not much of a fan of Robert Sanchez.
Yes.
And you need a goal scorer. Because look, Nicholas Jackson, he might be talented, but he's not going to guarantee you 15 Premier League goals a season.
I think that's why they've actually brought in a Palmer. I think that's why they've actually brought in a Palmer even to add a little bit more firepower. Because I think in front of goal, some of those chances that Chilwell was getting, bro, Palmer's burying that for fun. For fun. We've seen this guy score some serious goals with that left foot, man. Yeah, and I think we're going to wait it out and probably get a Tony in January. I think that's what's going to happen. So I don't want to rush around and panic buy and just get any striker. And how I look at it right now as well, Terry, like I'm trying to be a little bit proactive because obviously the aim is to get back into Europe. So what I want is a squad to be ready to go back into Europe. So when we get there, we can just make one or two more tweaks and then we're good to go. Do you get it? We need a squad to be able to challenge across all trophies, all competitions that we're in as well.
I hear what you're saying, mate. George here says that Palmer looks like a baller. Can't believe City let him go. And listen, everyone's going to have mixed emotions on this, no doubt. Cole Palmer is the most underwhelming signing, Terry, is what Matty says, though. So very different take on this from Matty, who's a Chelsea fan as well. Go for Tony in January. I dare any club to outbid us, is what Anton says. But maybe that's the plan.
We've seen that before.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Boys, I've got to shoot, so I'll probably be back if you're still on after that. I'll be back.
Okay, bro. No worries, my G. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, Don. Thanks, mate. Thank you. We're going to come back to this subject in a minute because we're going to go through the super chat. So stay with the Football Terrace, people. Please hit like buttons. Please subscribe. Because I know you've got to shoot soon, Cam, because I know you've got a meeting because obviously you're hours and hours behind us in the UK.
I'm still working after hours. Fucking hell, stupid.
Your thoughts, my bro, on the Amrabat deal. It really looks like it's close, listening to what Ornstein and Fabrizio has just tweeted. I spoke to a few journalists tonight that believe it's imminent and very close to a formal agreement. I know that it's taken far too long, but in terms of the quality of the player, do you think that completes our midfield? Do we still need a little bit more, or are you comfortable with it for the remainder of this season?
Comfortable. It's a shame we couldn't get, Donny and them out the door because we know, I'm sorry, like they're saying Gravenberch's first choice was obviously it wasn't. He wanted to come to United. He wanted it last year, and Bayern refused to sell. It would have been beautiful if we got Mount, Amrabat, and Gravenberch. That would have been like, okay, I get it. I get the signing. We kept saying from the jump that if Mount's the only midfield signing, all of us said it, then it's a problem. Amrabat makes it more stomachable because I think Amrabat's going to step in and actually play beside Bruno and Casemiro versus Mount being in that position. I don't think our manager's scared to have Mount come off the bench or whatnot. And I do believe there's some sense of Mount, if Bruno ever does get hurt, is actually a better player in that spot than other players. And I said it a million times. I think the Mount thing was very much we need homegrown players. United really need homegrown players, and that's why I think we focused on Amrabat. I don't think it was the right thing to do. We were sat here last week saying, you asked me the question, do you think we'll sign him? I said 70-30, and it's going to be the last day. So it seems like it's feeling that way. It is the right signing for us. We absolutely need a player with his steel in the midfield, a player who Mo has told the whole world who watches this channel about his ability to keep the ball and how good he is in a possession style team. Nobody's watched Fiorentina nearly as much as Mo has. And I've only seen them a few times. More where I've watched them, to be honest, was in the World Cup. And a player with his steel and his ability and his pace and power, we lack that. We're just so soft on so many. That's why we're not going to let Scott go at this stage, I think, because I think in one of our last games, we really had to kill off the game. And Scott was so instrumental to just getting to headers and stuff. And so I think we're going to keep him for that reason. So until we sort out our business when it comes to the money, I think this is the perfect signing for us, because if Cass does go down, I mean, I think we both held our breath when he looked like he was not going to be able to continue in that last game. Amrabat can step in there and play that role. Scott's not great. He's not amazing, but that Scott can at very least recycle the ball. So you put two kind of steely guys behind Bruno and it works. Is it perfect? No. But it's for us, I think, at the stage we're at and what we needed to do, it's probably the best move we could have done. Gravenberch wouldn't have been the right signing for what we need at the moment. It'd be almost a luxury signing, because you can't have a 21-year-old come in and be the savior of your midfield. You can't have a guy come in and be that guy. You need him to grow into the role, and we'll continue to put people around them. But I think if you think about future state and current state, at 26 years old, he can play the DM role. He'll be able to play beside Cass. It's a great signing. I think it'll be one of the best signings of the summer based on the amount of money we're going to spend on him. This thing that just sucks for us is the way we did it. We should have gone him first. After. We just didn't have the right order and how we got it done. Luckily, we came out of that Forest game with a win, because if we didn't, we'd have a lot of egg on our face. No one expects us to beat Arsenal. Get him in for the games coming up afterwards, and let's figure it out.
This is the hope is, listening again, talking to the journalists that I have done today, that Man United would very much like to have Amrabat, who, yes, hasn't played, but he did a full preseason and they think he's fit. They'd like to have him available for Arsenal. And they also want Cucurella in for the Arsenal game as well, with Luke Shaw being out. I know he played tonight. It's probably a good thing in terms of getting some blood into the legs and getting out there. I want Amrabat. I think he's brilliant. I'm what I call 80-20 on Cucurella. 80% of me thinks, no, don't do it.
Really?
And then there is this 20% of me that thinks every single one of us would have loved to have seen him come to our club this time last year. And we all knew there was a player in there. It's been one poor season when everybody at Chelsea was bad. Could he turn it around? So I'm a little bit 80-20 on that one. But Amrabat, personally, I agree with everything you said. I'm buzzing about it. Ronnie here, actually, with a super chat, says Amrabat, Bruno, Casemiro, and then stick Mount on the right wing.
Sure, doesn't really work.
I think you can do that. As an example, it gives us more balance. We've needed it in the last few games. Amrabat will help change things. We've still got holes, and we haven't addressed as many holes as I would like this summer. I thought we would, because more holes have appeared, because I expected certain players to leave who haven't. Yeah. Now it turns out that Luke Shaw's got a really bad problem with the muscle element around the broken leg that he had. Something to do with the amount of football he's played since then. There's something to do with muscle degeneration, which could become a real problematic thing. So you learn these things and you change your mind about stuff. But
so real quick. So if we could speak on our window in totality, obviously this always happens in the window when you don't get players at the right time. It kind of dampens the mood. But if you told me we're going to get two midfielders, Onana, and a striker in, of course he hasn't played, we probably feel pretty decent about that if you said at the start. And obviously the timing of when it comes in kind of dampens the feeling. But then with the Cucurella signing, and as much as, listen, not every player that Chelsea was going to buy was going to bang there. And they had a lot of hard times there. And I get it. Everyone's saying, a lot of my Chelsea friends here in Canada are saying, the guy can't play in a back four. He gets caught out. But truthfully, knowing the deficiencies we have in the midfield and seeing what Delo did, where he inverted so we could get a little bit more possession in on the ball, I think we're going to see that with Cucurella too. I think that's what he's going to try to do, to just shore up the midfield and get us more possession. And I'm actually more excited about that signing than most people.
It's interesting. Before we go back to Cole Palmer and talk a bit about Arsenal and Liverpool as well. So stay with us for that, viewers. I know that Man United Chat annoys our rivals because everyone's rivals, but the manager called this out in a press conference. He said the midfield hasn't been an issue this season. And we as football fans go, yes, it has. We saw it get run through. He's like, no, it's to do with the back and the front. And essentially, I've been trying to ascertain what that means, because again, journalists don't follow up and answer the question, What do you mean by it's the back and the front? And all I can assume that he's implying is, well, when our two midfielders went forward, our fullbacks didn't invert and it left holes, which is why, and Thierry Henry said this the other day, it was so funny, because Arsenal fans are like, Jack out of nowhere become a very good player. And Henry just, I think David Seaman asked him the question, and Henry just looked at Seaman like, no, he didn't become a good player. He suddenly wasn't being asked to play football outside his own box, which he's not good at. And he said he was allowed to go further forward, and he was able to go further forward, and Arsenal weren't getting caught out because they inverted their fullbacks. He went, it really isn't difficult. And if you look at those opening two games, Man United midfielders were pushing forward, but when we lost the ball, we were getting run through because nobody was inverting. It's so if what you say about Cucurella is true, you're going to invert, you're going to cover those holes, and there should be an improvement. Now, proof's in the pudding. Let's see what we do in reality, but it makes sense, and that's what the manager believes the problem is. So we'll see whether he's right or
Still
wrong.
The manager's fault, Tel. Still the manager's
Always,
fault.
it's always.
It is because Wan-Bissaka, who's been your main starting right back since the beginning of the season, and then Luke Shaw, who's been your left back, they're not inverting left back and right backs. They're traditional left back, right backs go up and down the pitch. I mean, Wan-Bissaka doesn't really tend to go up and down the pitch. So I think your manager's trying to, play a little bit of a blinder there. I think he knows even that midfield is unbalanced.
Where I would agree with you, it's on the manager in terms of he picked the personnel, and if the personnel make mistakes, you can bring it back to the manager. Well, he picked the players that he thought could do the tactics, and they didn't deliver for one reason or another. So I can accept that. I'm not going to argue that point. But again, last season, when AWB came back, and we all went, Jesus Christ, this guy's got back to a decent level again. He spent a lot of his time coming into the inside areas of the pitch. So you could call that. So again, he's never going to be an inverted player like a Zinchenko, who is an amazing playmaker, or a Philip Lahm, who's just an excellent footballer. He's never going to part with our fullbacks are not going to pass the ball around like Trent does. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. Their job when it comes to inverting is coming in to cover the holes defensively that the attacking midfielders leave, so they can stop the counterattacks and the transitions. That's what he wants, wanting them to invert. So it was more of an invert when we were attacking and not in possession per se. So it's more of a covering situation. Very much like, imagine if the reason why Trent's been exposed more at Liverpool in the past couple of years is because Jordan Henderson's legs went. When Henderson was able to cover his position defensively as a right back, no one noticed the mistakes from Trent because it was being recovered. Does that make sense? So the reason why we're saying a Klopp, like, why are you not fixing that problem, is because we're now seeing those issues that didn't exist before. So I get where you're coming from, but he doesn't mean, when I say invert, I'm not talking about going in there and doing a Kimmich or a Philip Lahm. I'm talking about covering defensive holes. That's all I mean by it, mate.
Brandon, I see where you're coming from, because I think
still think it's an excuse, mate.
I think he's full of shit in the media. I do. I don't think he tells the media the truth at all.
I understand that. I understand it, but at the same time, from my point of forward, nobody was coming on the inside. It doesn't make sense to set your tactics up like that. Now, maybe he did, and he's just saying that nobody covered on the inside, but it's not even a modern day tactic. It's how football's always been. If a fullback goes forward, somebody has to go and cover his position. If you don't and get caught on the counter, it gets called out. So for me, I don't think we're talking about something which is new and innovative for 2023. I think we're talking basic football. Now, you can say it's an excuse, but it's interesting. I like the challenge, because for me, I hear that a lot now. When someone says, why did your team lose today? And you say, these are the 4 or 5 mistakes we made. People say you're making excuses. I'm like, no, that's not an excuse. That's the reason. Like, do you know what I'm saying? I don't know. But listen,
I wouldn't know, because obviously I didn't watch the Man United Forest game because I was watching the Arsenal game, obviously. But yeah, you played Eriksen in the midfield, didn't you, in that game?
Yes.
Did your midfield look more balanced with him in there?
So it's a really hard game to judge the issues, and I'll tell you as to why, because the 2 goals they scored in the opening 3 minutes, right? They were nothing to do with our midfield being run through.
Yeah.
We then went on the front foot, and they sat back very deep, and we pinned them. However, what we did, if you go back and watch the game, when, for instance, we were attacking down the right-hand side, Luke Shaw was tucking into the midfield areas and vice versa. So there was players in there protecting those positions against transitional counterattacks. And we didn't get counterattack again after the 2 goals were conceded until we went 3-2 up, which was in like the sort of 80th minute of the game or whatever it was. So it was better. However, I'm not saying it's fixed, because you need more than one very weird game, by the way, because of the score lines, to assess it. So again, I'm not saying it's been fixed. you need to see more work on it. But it's hard to say whether we had more balance because we conceded so early and they sat back. Does that make sense? So it's a hard one to judge.
I do think just touching on Amrabat, because I know you're on that subject at the moment. I do think he will balance your midfield a lot better. The way he retains possession and that. Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes are too similar to me. You know, they both want to do that attacking side of the game where, you know, they're kind of playing these passes that will break defenses apart if it comes off. But, you know, a lot of the time they tend to lose the ball kind of thing. And yes, Mason Mount works hard as well, but Amrabat retains possession, recycles the ball very well. I've only watched him in a small sample size. Obviously, the Conference League final, and then of course the World Cup as well. He was excellent in the World Cup as well. I'm surprised there's not more teams in for him for the price tag that you're going to be paying. To be fair,
yeah. Listen, I think he will balance us out, and he'll give us a lot more. I understand exactly what you said about Mount and Bruno both being in the team. I didn't want to see Mount start as well, so that's an element that I solely put on the manager, and I think that's probably exaggerated the issues as well in the midfield that we already had as an example. But the manager wanted us to be more attacking, more forward thinking. What's crazy is in the opening 3 games of the Premier League, nobody has won possession in their opponent's back third of the pitch, so that in the final third for them, more than Man United. The problem that we've had, and we did this so much to Wolves, we won the ball back. And I know every United fan watching was like, yeah, come on, let's go and score. Let's show this new addition, a way of playing is going to work. And then within 2 passes, we'd lost the ball, but everybody jumped forward to commit to that attack, and we were getting caught. So it's about working things out as well. So I hear the challenge 100%. Boys, I want to go to some of these super chats here because I don't want to ignore them. This here says, Amrabat loan rejected, Terry. Am I wrong? Yes, to a degree. So it looks like Man United suggested a loan, and they said, no, we're not doing a loan solely. There's 2 options at the minute. It looks like Man United might just bid to buy him outright, but there's also an option of a loan with an obligation to buy, but nothing has been rejected in terms of formal bids as of now, my friend. But United have suggested some loans. This year says Musiala 2024 incoming Premier League. Get ready is what Modest, the Chelsea fan, says. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised. And do you know why I say that? The Bundesliga's best team are trying to sign people like Eric Dyer and McTominay. That league's dying. No, I'm not even being disrespectful. It's dying.
That's too cool, man.
It's not too cool. It's the league. It's dying.
It's too cool.
It's dying, in my opinion. Ram, what's your thoughts on Cole Palmer to Chelsea? And we are going to move on to Liverpool and some Arsenal chat as well. But what's your thoughts on that deal, bro?
Look, as I said earlier, I'm very confused with why they got him. I think they got a lot more problem areas that they needed to get. I get the whole idea, homegrown, he's young, he can help grow with the squad. But in my opinion, they've got a lot more problems in different areas rather than the midfield. I think they need more. They need a goal scorer. They need another centre back. I think they need a better goalkeeper. And I think obviously with the news about Cucurella going to United, they need a left back. So there's a lot more problems that Chelsea need to do. And I think Cole Palmer, I don't think he was really necessary, seeing the fact they've already got the likes of Nkunku, Madueke, Sterling, Mudryk. They've already got enough. And they've probably got some talented players in the youth academy. I know Chukwuemeka is also another player that they have. So, yeah, I think for me, I don't see the reason why they bought him. I think they could have done a lot better, as in terms of get better replacements for their team that is actually needed rather than Palmer.
Brand, do you agree with that?
To a degree, yeah. Obviously, Chelsea need other areas, but I think Cole Palmer's a very good signing, to be fair. In this, current market as well, I know he's reasonably unproven, but £45 million for the talent, and the manager that he's going to be working with is proven with young, talented players. I think he can get the best out of Cole Palmer, to be honest with you. I genuinely do. We've seen it with Pochettino at Spurs with numerous of players where, he's kind of taken them under his wing and made them so much better. Like, look at Dele Alli, for example. I know, obviously he's had personal things going on in his life, which has affected, where he is in his career now. But, when he took Dele Alli from MK Dons, nobody knew who this guy was. And he was arguably for a good couple of years period there, arguably the best number 10 in the Premier League. So, You know,
I get that, but at that time, Dele Alli was playing not against Eriksen, playing with Eriksen because they were playing both together. Cole Palmer will be playing up against players that I think, in my opinion, are ahead of him in his development. I think Madueke is just about a little bit ahead of him. I think Nkunku's ahead of him. I think obviously Sterling's light years ahead of him. He's already a grown man. And Mudryk is a little bit ahead of him as well. So I'm wondering, I mean, it's low level, but I get at the end of the day, he's still
Mudryk can't be ahead of Cole Palmer. He
no
can't.
way.
Ahead
can't.
Ahead of it. In a certain
I watched Mudryk the other day have a shot from like, I think it was like 12 yards out, and it went out for a throw-in, bro. Like, you can't tell me that Mudryk is ahead of Cole Palmer in his development. No way.
In his development, where is he? When is the opportunity for him to play going to happen? Like, there's so many players that are available. Because you're just juggling up so many names. At least the likes of Dele Alli. I think the player that was in front of him was Paulinho. And then he got sold, I think, to China, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think he got sold to China. So there is no real clear pathway. And if I was Cole Palmer's camp, I'm wondering, where's the actual clear progression for him to actually develop?
Yeah, but at the same time, do you not think he's got a better opportunity of getting game time and actually establishing himself at Chelsea than what he is at Manchester City? Look at the players that he's got to try and get in ahead of at Manchester City. The players that he's trying to get in ahead of at Chelsea are pretty much on the same sort of development level as what he is. So I think he's got the talent, definitely.
I think he's got listen, I do get the challenge that there's so many players there who's going to make some of these players are not going to rise to the top. But my view is this: if you're good enough via training and when you get your appearances, you'll deliver. And maybe what we're actually seeing here as well is a little bit of foreshadowing. Maybe, like Koulibaly's already gone, Bamiyang's already gone, and they were signed straight out the door. Maybe the manager's come in, and I'm just going to throw a name out there. Maybe he's looked at Madueke and gone, I know you guys have bought him, but this kid ain't for me. And they don't want to damage. It's okay with the player Koulibaly's age, especially when Saudi came in from. It's okay with a player at Bamiyang's age because he's really well past his best. Again, I'm not calling him out here, but Lee Gunner would say what you should do is out the player and say shit and stick him in the under 21s and say he's not playing. The problem is when you do that is you damage the sell-on value. Now, it's hard to sell crap players. It's very hard to sell Maguire to anybody. But imagine how much harder it is to try and sell him at a good price if you publicly state and make it outgoing that he has nothing to do with your club. It's poor salesmanship. And people like Lee and many others like him should understand this. They were salesmen. That was their job. You imagine you say, he used to sell double glazing. Imagine he tells his clients before he tries to sell them his windows, that the windows are shit and don't work. But by the way, do you want to buy them? It doesn't work. In my personal opinion, which is, forget a club like Man United that are toxic. Pep wouldn't do it. Pep wouldn't turn around and say these players are this, they're that, they're not good. He bigs every player up that he doesn't want, talks about how amazing they are, and then sells them. Why? Because that's how you get more money for them. So I think there could be a player or two at Chelsea, like a Madueke, as an example. It may not be him, who you suddenly see loaned out after the window shuts. Maybe they go to Strasbourg, who they just bought, and is slowly phased away. Because I do think you'll probably find a manager of Poch's coaching ability has come in and gone, I know what you guys were trying to do, but these 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think it's one of those things. I get the challenge, but I think we've got to wait a little bit to see who leaves. I really, really do. And that's not a dig at Lee, by the way. I just like to call it out because he ain't the only one who thinks that managers should sit there in press conferences and say all the players I don't want are shit, which I just think is a crazy concept personally. But that's just
one player that people forget about that Jose did that too, and I think it hurt his value with us was Paul Pogba. Like, it was clear he wasn't wanted by Jose Mourinho. His agent tried to force him out, so Real Madrid was like, "We'll give you 40 M's." Because we know, like, you don't want him. We know he doesn't want to be there. And Real Madrid will pay for players that they want. And at the time, Pogba was really good. But they're like, okay, why are we going to overpay for a player that is not even wanted at the club? So I agree with you. That's one thing I will never agree with. I do agree with him that he is a liar because I don't think he tells the full truth. But I think it's in, like you said, it's to be professional. Like, there's nothing that's good that comes out of slaying.
Yeah. I mean, the word lie implies for me that you're lying to people in a devious way.
Oh,
So
no,
what I would say is this, right? If you were out, I'm not saying Brandon does this, but Brandon, if you were out with another woman tonight, doing a madness, and your wife said to you, "Where were you tonight?" and you said you're around your friend's house, you're lying to her, and you're lying because you're protecting a bad secret. Would you call it lying if you were out tonight and she didn't know where you were, but you were planning a surprise birthday party for her? When she said, "Where are you?" and you said, "Just around a mate's house playing the computer," would you consider that lying to your wife in a sinister way?
Not in a sinister way, but yeah, it's still lying, isn't it?
A lie, but you wouldn't call yourself. If someone said, "Are you always truthful with your wife?" you wouldn't say. You would say yes.
Mate, anybody who's always truthful with the wife is divorced within 2 months. So,
but that's also part of the thing. You've got to have tact. But you know exactly where I'm coming from, Brandon.
Yes,
you wouldn't call yourself a liar in that circumstance, because what you're doing is you're telling a mistruth because you're doing something amazing for someone. So when a manager, and let's take it away from the Ten Hag thing, if a manager sits there like Poch in this scenario, and with these young players who, by the way, have long contracts, they have to try and get money for, and start saying their shit, all that value drops out, and it becomes harder to sell them, or they have to take a loss on them. And at some point, even with Chelsea's money, they have to make a return on some of these players. So all we're kind of saying here is, don't expect, the manager will say that all these players that he's left with are brilliant and he sees them all as being great. But of course he isn't going to tell us the full truth, because why would you ever show your hand negotiating wise that early, that publicly? It would be a stupid thing to do. So I understand that. Go on, mate.
There definitely is a fine line. We're experiencing the same thing at Arsenal right now. Like Kieran Tierney, for example, right? We've had to loan him out just to see, because there was no football clubs that came in and actually offered money on the table for him. And that was because the manager made it very, very, very clear to everybody that he didn't want Kieran Tierney. He was playing, centre-backs in his position ahead of him. So when you do things like that and call players out, yeah, it don't bode well.
But this is just absolutely it. This is the irony in it. And again, I go back to Lee, who loves Tierney. The manager got it. Maybe your manager got it wrong in terms of his behaviours publicly to getting people to pay more for the player. Then I see people get angry that you've not got any money for him. But yet they advocate that kind of behaviour towards players. It becomes contradictory in itself. That's why I say it's about behaviours. But we kind of digress a little bit here. I want to go back to some of these. I know you got to go, Cam. Cheers, bro. I want to go back.
Just want to say one thing. Ram, just enjoy Gravenberch if you get him.
Go away.
Choice.
Yeah, I was going to ask about next. I want to go to these super chats, and I want to speak Gravenberch here for a moment. Chelsea having multiple players who can start at each position creates competition in the squad that will push these players and help them develop. Again, I generally agree with that, my friend. I assume you do, Brandon, as well. Like, the more quality you have in more positions, I don't think it's a bad thing. We don't need a left back. We have Maatsen.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, we weren't talking about. Yep, thank you, sir. Palmer plays in midfield with Enzo and Caicedo, 100%. Interesting. They see him as an attacking midfielder. A great stream. When will Saka get cover? Come on, you Gooners.
Not in this window.
Not in it. Yeah, it doesn't look like it right now. 2 goals and suddenly Palmer's the regain of RVP. No one's saying that. As a winger, I agree. I'll say clear
That's
number 10.
Kai Havertz, isn't it? RVP.
Liao and Osherman over Mudryk, Palmer, Noni, Sterling, Nico. Well, I understand, but let me just Nico Jackson. Let me just throw this out to you. I understand that, Ike, but this is another thing that football fans seem to never want to consider. What if those 2 players don't want to join you right now? Again, one of those things I've had arguments with many people on Straight Facts about. Why don't you get and buy this guy? Well, what if he says no to it? Like, that's a fair argument. But what about the counter that? What if that player just says, "I'm not joining you for love nor money. I don't want to be in London right now," or "I want to see how you develop in the next 12 months before I make a decision." You can't buy him. So it becomes a non-starter. And I guarantee if Rafael Leao was on the phone saying, "Please, Chelsea, I want to join you," they'd have gone and bought him. Like that's part of it in my personal opinion. So Chelsea, another couple before the window shuts, 5 more in January, and then 10 more players next summer. Maybe. Listen, there is talk they're going to go for 1 more player this summer as well. There is talk of that right now.
That's mad.
There is genuinely. Fati's name was mentioned. There are a few. Emil Smith Rowe is still a player they could go in for and look at. They're still supposedly looking at Rafinha as well. Like those
How
other
much
stories
money?
down.
It's about 450
Well,
they spent.
Remember, because they're not in any UEFA competitions, they can do the 8, 9, 10-year amortization.
Oh yeah.
So they are, in my opinion, they are going to try and spend as much as they can before those rules maybe impact them next year. Question to the panel: would City prefer Lavia or Phillips right now?
Lavia.
Yeah. So would you'd like either of them at your club, Liverpool. On Liverpool, Gravenberch, looks like you're going to properly go in for him now. Man United look like they've pulled away. Excited about that deal, or are you a little bit underwhelmed by it, Ram?
Underwhelmed, in my opinion. I'm not a massive fan of him as a lone six. I think he is the kind of player that would be good as a number 8, as a defensive-minded 8. Maybe what we're doing a couple of seasons ago, but him to play as a 6, I am not too keen on it. And the fact that we're going for someone of his caliber or of his profile, I'd rather just go for Kefren Turam than him. I think Kefren Turam is better than him, and I think he's ahead of him in terms of his development. And I think he'll be a lot more better prospect in the future than Gravenberch. I am very, 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 very underwhelmed with this. He can't play 6. I don't think he has the defensive nous and the defensive capabilities. And he doesn't even have the physical attributes, because if he doesn't have the mindset or the defensive nous, then at least he has pace and power where he can get around the pitch and put in some challenges. He doesn't even have that. He is someone that we are not looking for in a DM. And I'm questioning what my club are doing in signing him. I don't know whether they're going to go for this total football thing where, because he's built as a 6 foot, he's 6'4", and he's relatively decent in all aspects of the midfield, he can play as a 6. If that's the case, then it's a big, big worry for me. It's a very, very big worry for me. I am not looking forward to this next couple of hours with him. Hopefully it doesn't go through, but I don't know what to say. We need midfielders, and we just left everything so late.
I like him. I want to throw this question out to you though. There are people saying, if Bayern are willing to replace him with McTominay, how good is he really? Like, that's a question. So let me just, my point. I think Gravenberch is really talented, but that's a question. Bayern Munich selling him to replace him with McTominay, does that tell you something, or is that just an anomaly that doesn't matter?
I think whoever Bayern replaces with somebody is going to be backup either way, because they've already signed Konrad Laimer, who was meant to fill in that position that Gravenberch did. And the one thing that this signing shows is that he is part of the Bayern board that wanted him, that the fans wanted out last season. He was the main signing. He was the one that the board wanted to get, the likes of Khan and Salihimovic. They wanted him. And now look at where they are. And I think that says a lot. That the actual board that actually was getting driven out by the fans, the guy that wanted the player, they're gone.
Just very quickly, boys, changing the subject completely. The draw's been done for the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup. So Man United have drawn at home against Crystal Palace. Arsenal go away to face Brentford. Okay. Man City have drawn away at Newcastle.
Hey.
Liverpool will play Leicester in the 3rd round. I'm not too sure if it's home or away. The account I'm looking at hasn't said. West Ham will play Lincoln. I haven't seen who Chelsea are going to get, but
who've Tottenham got?
I don't know who Chelsea have got. Someone in the comments will probably write it in there before I actually search it. But the reason I say that is, oh wow, Chelsea will face Brighton at home. So the reason I'm saying this is, listen, Arsenal could beat Brentford. Of course they could. They smashed them last year at home in the league. City could beat Newcastle. Chelsea could definitely beat Brighton. But this is why I said to Spurs, Man United got to play Palace. I'm not worried about my team. This is why I said last night Spurs were silly not to play a strong team, because there's a potential that Newcastle will knock out Man City and the Arsenal get knocked out by Brentford. There's a because I think both teams will play lesser teams in those games because of Champions League football. So suddenly you're in a position where those teams go out. You've got not a clear run to the final, but suddenly the best two teams in England could be out. And that's why, listen, and as a Man United fan, I'm looking at it and saying, listen, beat Palace at home, which we should do. You get a couple of those big boys go out, and suddenly who's actually left in the competition? Liverpool. And maybe you got a couple of teams only left in the competition that can really hurt you. That's why you should never play weak teams.
Hypothetically, if they were through, they would have faced Norwich.
Exactly. At home or away? At home, exactly. And then that's the game where you can rotate and still win. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not away at Fulham. Not away at Fulham. Crazy. And that's not it is a dig. It is a dig. I was talking to my dad about it today, and he's my dad, right? He's so Tottenham because my dad's business partner as well. So me and my dad, we have a business together. He's business partner as a Spurs fan as well. And he was like, I agree with your show last night, Terry. He said, we shouldn't have made that much rotation. My dad's like, no, but what if our best three players got injured for the league game at the weekend? And I'm like, Dad, what are you? I was like, Dad, oh, you disappoint me, father. But yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, interesting. Terry thinks United are going to win. I didn't say I think we're going to win. I said there's the potential for big teams going out, which opens it up and gives you, listen, have Man United got more of a chance of winning
last year, didn't they?
Yeah, we won it last year too. Have Man United and Liverpool, who've got relatively easy draws, got more of a chance of winning the Carabao Cup if Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, and Spurs are all out of it? The answer is yes. So of course, like they're tough tries. Anyway, this super chat here. This says having to choose between Fati or Brandon Johnson after selling our best player 3 days before the season starts. That's right up there with Levy's legacy. What do you boys make of the Fati to Tottenham? I mean, it looks like it's going Brighton now. There's a lady called Helen something, a Spanish journalist that everyone was quoting an hour ago saying Spurs were getting it done. Now looks like Brighton. But Brandon Johnson or Fati potentially to replace Kane, is that really good enough business by Daniel Levy?
Either player is just not at that level. Firstly, Ansu Fati had his injury problems. I think he had a really bad knee injury and was out for like 6 or 7 months. So we don't even know if he's even physically capable of handling the Premier League. And Brennan Johnson's just not ready. He is literally not ready to play for a big team. Like, got incredible skills, very good movement, but end product is absolutely woeful. I don't know why Tottenham are going for 2 very young players. If you're going through that front line, I think a striker might be the way forward rather than a left winger. I think rather keep Son at left wing and just switch up Richarlison, because after Richarlison, who have you got? Scarlett. Come on. If you really want a challenge to get back into the Champions League, which I hear a lot of Tottenham fans wanting, get a decent striker rather than a mediocre left winger.
Yeah, I agree. I think striker's position should be Tottenham's priority, because even if you like, Richarlison's not a striker, he never has been. If you go back to his Watford days, his Everton days, he did his best work off the left wing, not playing up front, or if he was playing in a 2 up front with Calvert-Lewin, that's when Richarlison did his best work. But when he's a lone 9 on his own, it doesn't work. And the problem that Tottenham have got is very much the same thing as what all the rest of the football clubs in England have got. The strikers market isn't that great, if we're being real, apart from Harry Kane, Victor Osimhen, who are going to cost you ridiculous amounts of money. Obviously, Kane's moved on. I believe Napoli rejected a bid from Saudi earlier on in the window for Osimhen. So apart from that, the strikers market's not that great, really. Let's be honest. I mean, you talk about Rasmus Højlund, you know, he scored 11 goals, and you paid 72 million pound premium for him. So
64 million
or 64 million. You know, when you look at the strikers market, it's not.
And again, and you're right. And but then you've also got the flip side to that. You don't spend it, and then he scores 20 league goals this year, and then he's 130, 140 million. Everything's becoming more and more expensive. Or he has a bad year, and no one buys him, and he flops, and you've wasted your money. And it's so hard to get
I'm
people.
surprised that they haven't had a look at Brighton's striker. If they want a young striker, Ferguson.
Oh, they quoted it. I think he has a really high release clause.
Yeah,
like,
so
around
again,
about 200.
Yeah, so you're talking double the price of buying a Rasmus Højlund, and he's had. I don't even know if he scored as many goals. You could argue he's done it in a better league, but it becomes much of a muchness in the end. Plus, I also think he's smart, Ferguson. I don't think he wants to leave right now. I think he's like, listen, I'm getting my development here. He leaves when you're young and you leave. Look what's happened to us. Listen, Felix is a prime example. I think he left Benfica far too young. Who's a player that always stands out to me? The midfielder, the Portuguese lad. Sanchez.
Renato.
Again, I just think he made that big. He should stay where he was for another couple of years. He didn't. So no, I hear you on that. Was this here says was truly hoping ESR, but happy Chelsea have been able to buy a very versatile player with a good shot on him. Chelsea need creativity and goals. I hear you there. I wanted to ask you, Brandon, because yesterday I saw this was a debate. So I keep saying to people like Mudryk to Arsenal in this swap deal. We saw Football.London talk about it. There was a few of the big Arsenal aggregators kind of put out that it was suggested. I want to say it was suggested by Chelsea as an example. Now, I don't really care if it's true or not. Would you do that deal? Would you swap Smith Rowe for Mykhailo Mudryk? Do you think your club should do it, considering how much you guys wanted him?
No, definitely not, mate. Well, even when we was linked with Mudryk, I made it very clear that I didn't want him because of his lack of experience, because he'd only played, 60 games for Shakhtar at the time, and then he comes in for an £88 million premium. I never really thought. I mean, he's talented. Don't get it wrong. But if you look at the sample size that he's shown us at Chelsea, he don't look ready for Premier League football. So that's definitely not a deal I would be doing or even entertaining. And the Smith Rowe thing is a weird one because he looks like he's third, maybe fourth choice. Right now, you got Fabio Vieira in ahead of him, you got Kai Havertz in ahead of him, Martin Odegaard in ahead of him, and he's struggling to get minutes. So I wouldn't be against cashing in on him as long as the money was reinvested back into the squad, because we have got other areas of weakness. But again, I wouldn't want to sell him to a rival in the Premier League, and because we know what an exceptional player Smith Rowe can be. You look at the season that he had for us a couple of seasons ago. I think he came up with 10 goals and about 6 assists or something like that. He scored some big goals against Spurs, Chelsea. So there's definitely talent in the ESR. And personally, for me, I'd like to keep him at Arsenal. But if the manager, he's looking like he doesn't really, he's not going to get many minutes, then, maybe cash in on him and reinvest in the squad elsewhere.
I forgot to ask you guys, do you think City see Chelsea as rivals because they let Cole Palmer go to Chelsea?
You say that, right? But City also let us have Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus because we was at the time we was miles off of them. So I don't think it's a case that I think it's a case that they don't think Cole Palmer is going to be a game changer for Chelsea, if that makes sense.
But then it doesn't necessarily mean that. Again, I think they thought that about Zinchenko and Jesus, but I do think those players have helped to make you into a better team. More is needed, and that's why I think it would have been very difficult for you to do more business with City this year because, we might make that mistake again. And again, if Cole Palmer kills it and Doku doesn't, then this will go down as a mistake. However, if City is still winning the majority of the trophies, nobody will call it out. And this is again, a big part of the debate I had with Lee yesterday, is I know you're sort of like all mistakes and behavioral things should be called out, but that's only if you're not winning. So again, it's not generally the mistakes that are the problem. It's the not winning of the trophies that make people call you out. So that's why calling out someone's practices are interesting, because it's like the great managers sometimes fail in those areas as well, less often than people that are not. but it isn't always the practice, it's the frequency of them. And sometimes I think we over focus on certain things, especially when someone's only been around a year, 3 or 4 months. It's like, Jesus Christ, like give them a little bit more time. I'm not saying Arteta, by the way, but I look at it this way, right? I get you. You didn't want Mudryk, so you wouldn't want to do the swap deal. The one thing I would say to a lot of the Arsenal fans that I've seen say, oh, no, I don't want him. Some of them I follow, and I'm like, man, you were twerking for that guy. You said he was potential world class. And I get he hasn't done well at Chelsea. But what I kind of don't understand is if this was an option, clearly Smith Rowe is not in the plans to be a first team player by Arteta. I just don't think he is. I think he looks at him as a backup option only. If, for instance, Chelsea said, listen, you could have your star guy, we want to swap him and let you have him now for a player that you don't really start that often. I don't understand why people that back Arteta wouldn't want that deal. Other than I get that Mudryk hasn't been good. But a lot of Arsenal fans, again, the same guys, when they've said, oh, he's flopped, and they go, but you wanted him. They say, yeah, but if it had come to us, he'd have smashed it. So in my opinion, no player's ruined in 6 months. So what I kind of find interesting watching people is, are you now doubting not your manager, but are you now going, actually, I think if we'd have done that deal, it would have been an awful one because he's not as good as we all thought he was going to be. That can be the only logical reason I come to. Because if you believe he's class still, and you back your manager's talent ID, and you only think he's looked bad because of Chelsea, why wouldn't you advocate the idea at least of the swap deal? Or am I mistaken here?
Terry, they'll find a way of spinning it around like how they did it with Kai Havertz, man. Like
they don't back the manager as much as what they say. A lot of these say things online for, I don't know. I wouldn't like to say clout or anything like that, but there's no way that these fans believe everything that they say. Because you're right, there's a lot of fans that I've seen that were twerking for Mudryk. Mudryk this, Mudryk that. Oh, what a great signing he's going to be. And then as soon as he goes to Chelsea, oh, he'll flop, he'll be bad, or blah, blah, blah. And then since he has flopped, everybody's, oh, haha, laugh at Mudryk. And now all of a sudden, we don't want him. And it's a bit strange to me. But yeah, there's no way that these people believe in Arteta as much as what they say they do. Because there's a lot of people right now questioning the Kai Havertz signing, and rightly so. Don't get it wrong, rightly so. But apparently,
well, those are the ones that you have to listen to. Those are the ones.
We was told 2-3 seasons ago, even last season, trust the process, trust the manager. So why are they not trusting the manager now?
Do you know what I find really interesting is young Dan, Spurs fan, was on a show last night, and we had Pav call in, who's a United fan, that said, I can't believe you Spurs fans are not blaming Postecoglou for you going out last night, or you're relinquishing him of any blame. And he said, essentially, he made the 8 or 9 rotational changes, so your team wasn't as good. And he also opted to allow Sanchez to take that 3rd penalty when Sanchez is an awful footballer and his confidence is low. Your manager made those decisions. It's on him. And they're fighting and arguing for about 5-10 minutes. I just sat back and watched it and listened. And then Alan came on, the Spurs fan, and said, I agree with Pav, it is on the manager. And then a lot of them, they were basically alluding to, and young Dan said it, but why would I want my manager out after just 3 games just because we lost today? And what I found so interesting about it was no one's asking you to say that Postecoglou should be sacked because you blame him or hold him accountable for tonight's defeat. And that's missing now from so much of football. The way people operate with politics is now, some people are like, I vote Democrat or I vote Labour. So it doesn't matter what those politicians say or do or mistakes they make, I'm backing them no matter what. Same with the Conservatives and the Republicans. It's coming to football. I won't publicly say anything negative about anything he does because that's not the right way to be. And I'm just sitting here as an adult saying, you can say I love Arteta or I back Arteta to get it right, but this mistake is wrong. And this is what people don't get. And me and Lee get into fights sometimes, and I'm like, Lee, I actually agree with like 8 of the 10 things you've said. I just disagree with 2 of them. But that's not enough. It's not, no, you've got to agree with all of them. You just don't know what you're talking about. And I just don't kind of operate in that world.
The best thing that Arsenal fans can do is go and watch Lee Judge's AFT fan cam at the weekend. Anybody hasn't seen that? He said the same thing. I back Arteta, but he is not immune to criticism. He is not, he makes mistakes as well. Why don't people call it? It's like there's a massive love fest for Arteta. And look, I understand it. They want him to succeed. He's a former Arsenal captain, former Arsenal player, and I get that. I want him to succeed, believe it or not, although I'm negative, as people will say. But I like to look at things with a realistic outlook, Terry. And the fact of the matter is, in this transfer window, and you might even be shocked by this. If I had to rate this transfer window, it's not getting any higher than a 5 out of 10. Because when you look at our defence, for an example, the thing that let us down last season, and also the thing that everybody else who backs Arteta said to us last season that let us down, squad depth, we actually have less defensive cover than what we had last season. We have Kai Havertz, who currently is stinking out the place in the midfield, and we haven't gone and got a better attacker than Eddie Nketiah. Now, Eddie Nketiah, so far this season, has, been really good. But how long does it last? Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally get where you're coming from. I just want to interject. Breaking news. Fati to Brighton. Here we go. The deal is done. What's crazy is, honestly, I was being tagged by people before we went live. You got to talk about Tottenham. Tottenham 99% of the way there. That's according to, I can't remember her name. Helen something was the journalist's name. So, we put Fati in a Spurs shirt in the thumbnail, had a little chat about it, but Brighton have landed him. I'm intrigued by it. Clearly, this is who they've gone for now instead of Mohamed Kudus. That's what it feels like to me on the outside in. KJ joining us here now as well. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, man. I just can't believe it. How are Spurs allowing Brighton to come take a talent like Ansu Fati off their hands, man? You can't be 99% there and the 1% that isn't done. You know what, man? That's so Spursy. You have a 1% chance of it not going right, and it doesn't go right.
And it happens.
Yeah. It probably
actually happens, yeah.
Like, probably watched in the Carabao Cup last night. And these lot are allergic to trophies, so he probably thought, I'll go Brighton instead.
No, apparently, he had a Zoom call with Postecoglou and Spurs, and he wasn't feeling it. And then he spoke to De Zerbi, and De Zerbi was key in him going. And that's the thing when you have a manager like Postecoglou, like you will lose out on some talent because they may not be sure of him. Like De Zerbi's got a better CV already in the Premier League than Postecoglou. So he's going to go to a club that is in the Europa League as well. It was closer to winning trophies last season than Spurs were. And they look like they're on the up. They look like they're the place for developing talent. You look at Ferguson, Mitoma, Caicedo. Look at all the talent that gone through. Cucurella when he was there. He was touted to be really, really good. So they've just signed that kid from Lille. So I can see why Ansu Fati would pick it.
It's a development. So listen, Postecoglou's, people say he's good at developing young talent, but it's unproven at this level. De Zerbi and Brighton as a whole are not. And maybe Ansu Fati, look, he's going there on loan. I'm not sure if the verbal agreement is done. I'm not sure if there's an obligation to buy. I'd say no buy option. Maybe Fati looks at it as, look, I can go there. And if they can get me back firing, maybe I can be back in that Barcelona team next year. That's probably part of his thinking there. Super chats here. This says, the Arsenal fans say they, like he is not an Arsenal fan. Mudryk is a flop at Chelsea. Move on, please. Thank you, Enigma. Mark my words, Cole Palmer will become world-class at Chelsea. Big up Terry is what Akil says. Emil Smith-Rowe, next Foden, loan Vieira, play Smith-Rowe, backup Saka, is what Sam says here.
On the right.
I think
he can play on the left. He's played on the left.
Yeah, I think Vieira is going to have a decent season. I like Vieira. I think he's going to have a good season for you. Much better than last year. Anyway, I turned 50 in 20 minutes. That's 5 minutes away now, actually. Come on, United, do good now. Or Amrabat looks like he's on his way, baby. Amrabat looks like he's on his way. Chelsea would easily agree personal terms. I think you were talking about, you tweet earlier about the likes of Rafael Leao and Osimhen. Maybe they could, but maybe they haven't. And I'm not saying they haven't. I'm stating that it isn't just as simple as going buy those players instead. There's so many other factors that may stop things. Sometimes, I'm not suggesting those two. Sometimes you can't sign a player that you personally want your club to. Your club can't do it because the club have an awful relationship with the player's agent. For instance, Jurgen Klopp went through a period where he would not, same as Fergie, would not sign a player who was managed by Mino Raiola. They wouldn't deal with him. So the point is, you as a Liverpool fan in that circumstance, I know you're not Ike, the super chatter, go, I want you to go and buy Paul Pogba when he's in his pomp. If your manager and your club don't deal with his agent, it becomes irrelevant that you think he's better than what you're buying. Your club don't deal with him. So, like I said before, it's not just as simple as we'll go and buy a better player. There's multiple factors that can stop things happening that must be considered when it comes to your overall judgment. It's key.
You also have to take into account that maybe the likes of Leao and Osimhen, I know for a fact Osimhen's camp is thinking this, they want to move to Madrid. Madrid's already signed Joselu as their sort of stopgap. They're looking for a striker. Osimhen may be thinking, if I have another good season with Napoli, I'm going there.
Not only that, they could be looking at Chelsea as a team that's it's not settled at the moment. They're still signing players. There's still, they've just got the new manager in. They're still moving players on. Nothing's really settled and set in stone with Chelsea. And when you go and sign a player like Osimhen or Leao, you want them to be, the marquee signing that has the big impact on the team. And right now, nobody knows who's playing from week to week.
It's certainly true. There's loads of factors. Brighton is the bigger club thinks Fati, maybe. George here says, please stay away from the Ukrainian bolts.
No, it's just Ukraine, bro. That is amazing.
Ukraine. Waiting for Rams negativity with this possible signing. Well, that's already happened.
Cheers, mate. Cheers, mate. Appreciate it.
Tell you had a nice day after Lee pissed you off. Listen, Lee and me get annoyed at each other, but it's never from a place. Do you know I actually wouldn't talk to someone like that who I didn't like? Ironically, I'll have more tact. There's only a handful of people I've ever streamed with where I get angry and frustrated with them, but they're people I like and get on with. If I'm not keen on someone or I don't know them very well, I would never do that. But yeah, it is what it is. He does frustrate me sometimes. Not for his answers. It's actually for considering he might say 100 words in a response. It's for his lack of answer. Sometimes it's like that weren't the question, but okay. Will you spend days talking about how Gravenberch chose Liverpool over United? Well, look, someone sent me a link to the article from Ornstein. I haven't read that article from Ornstein yet. And it said that he prefers to move to Liverpool over Man United. And that's true. And we're in for him. Then we got rejected. I can take it on the chin. But again, Hussam will bring it up on Friday. And I'm very comfortable with accepting that Gravenberch chose Liverpool over Man United.
I think Hussam would have wished that he didn't.
Hang on, though. But yeah, I'm very, very happy comfortable in my own skin enough to say it. However, that means you have to concede that Lavia and Caicedo rejected you for Chelsea. So this is my point. You can't accept that trophy over us, that win over us. You can't accept the L's in the other direction. It won't hit. So again, I can take it. I'm bothered because I like him. And like I was bothered that we didn't get Darwin. I was bothered that we didn't get Gakpo to a degree. But I can accept it and move on. I'm a man. I'm a grown man. I can accept it. I don't cry about it. So yeah, and it will come up if it turns out to be true. Gooners who thinks you kicked Lee's ass. Listen, this is the great thing about mine and Lee's debate. Some people think I won. Some people think he won. It's not. I don't really do it to win. It's just a battle of ideas and that's it. And you'll probably think, most normal people would probably think Lee's right there, Terry's right there, he's right there, both wrong there, both right there. That's the way these things work. Like, it's really not deep. Like, me and Lee sat backstage afterwards and laughed. So yeah, it's not deep at all. Brandon is right about our window. Timber would have solved it, but I'm still hoping to see who? Royal Waters. Yeah. Promoted, but it's a concern. Yeah, I get why it is a concern. I definitely do. Boys, I want to thank you all very much. There's no L's in paradise. Yeah. Communist Merseyside, that's true. Terry, just respond to Liverpool fans with where's the bid? Well, this is it. I mean, I could do that, but if Man United have pulled out because Liverpool are ahead of us, someone's also sent me a different segment from the argument that says Man United are focusing on Amrabat and not Gravenberch. So that, again, I need to go and read it for the order of these things, because if we've said to Gravenberch, your second choice, and now he prefers Liverpool over us, that's not a rejection as far as I can read. But either way, if you want to call it a rejection, call it a rejection. I'm very happy we're getting Amrabat. And like I said before, I can take it. It just doesn't bother me. I'm a grown man. Boys, I appreciate you all coming on. It's a much longer stream than I thought it was going to be. I thought I'd only do about 40 minutes. Hour and 24 minutes later, we're still here. Viewers, I respect you all so much. Please hit like buttons for us. Subscribe and turn on the bell notifications as well. Really key. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Make sure you're back. Done Deal Show with Dean Jones. We are live. We'll be live from around 4:45 for the Champions League draw as well. So make sure you're with the terrace for that, as a lot of you always are. Until next time, I'm going to go and get some sleep now because I've been walking around a wildlife park and soft play areas with Lady Freya and Baby Jackson today, and man is exhausted. Honestly, kids, I love them, but God's sake, they're hard work. Listen, people, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all